Hello, and welcome all to another episode of Myths and Magic. Your Lord, your Savior, Leonard, will be with you momentarily. But first, he has urged me to remind all of the viewers to please keep their pens out, their notebooks open, and their clothes fully on. On this channel, you will be discussing the many matters of myths, of magic, and everything that is wrapped up within those two subjects. We urge all of you to please, if you are underage, have a consenting adult next to you to guide you through these processes. There have been many mistakes in the past by people not being prepared for what fully happens through these episodes, but your Lord and Savior, Leonok, will do everything in his power to ensure that all of you have a wonderful experience. So, without further more delay, keep your wands up, your roads on, and your minds open. For your hearts welcome, your Lord, your Master, Leonard!
Hello everyone and welcome to the episode, welcome to the recording. It is I, your Lord, your Master, your Teacher, and perhaps your Savior, Leonok, and I welcome all of you to another episode. I bid a hello and a fabulous welcome to all my lords, my ladies, my winners, my wizards, my lizards, my losers, my morons, smart ones, geniuses, savants, patrons of the arts, and of course, my rats. And I'm so happy to have all of you here today because we're going to be discussing a few things that I think are rather pretty interesting to talk about. Now, what I'm going to do in this video, first of all, is to not only say hello and welcome, but I also want to let all of you know that if you're first-time viewers, perhaps, or people that perhaps, saw this video, perhaps was a bit interested, this is the type of channel where I pretty much talk about a broad variety of subjects, my takes on them, but most of the time, it is mostly sort of informational education on certain matters or aspects and theories attributed to the occult and mostly to things like, myths, other things like magic and things of that nature. Every now and then, however, I will discuss certain, topics that are a bit current. Though I try not to, to do too much of that sort of thing because I feel like as though everyone's talking about it. And the last thing I want is to, incorporate sort of, those things of what we see in our current day-to-day life. So what I'm going to do right now is say hello and tell you about three things that I think are rather interesting when I thought about them, okay? So, forgive me also if I'm a bit, a bit quick or a bit rambly. I have this terrible, habit of sort of, speaking and sort of speaking quickly without properly getting my words across because I'm, have so many things I want to tell you, so many things that I want to say. And unfortunately, it is a bit, rather difficult to understand at the time in being. So, it is a lot of things, but I want to welcome all of you once again for the third time and to please compose yourselves appropriately. And, anyways, we just wanted to get started. So, I have a bit of a worry or an issue. So recently, we had, Hocus Pocus 2 finally came out and I did see it. And I was like, okay, so what is the sort of thing we're going to be talking about? Do this whole Hocus Pocus thing. And I was like, I'm very curious. It's been, almost 30 years perhaps, maybe 20 or so, since the last one came out. And I was like, well, this is rather important to us. So the thing, everyone watches it. I sort of, do this whole thing with magic and everything else and myths. And honestly, the movie, it's not for us. It's not really meant for us. It wasn't terrible, but unfortunately, it is a movie that, has been sort of tainted by, the current standards of what they seek within a movie, trying to seek a younger audience for a movie that was for an audience at a somewhat younger age, but decades ago. So the things that we like have changed. The things that we've seen have changed. Our tastes have changed. And even how they do movies nowadays, even with storytelling, or even what's, genuine or charming about the movie has also changed. And so the issue that I have is when they insistently, consistently insist upon reenacting certain things to sort of bring back the magic that the first films had. Independence Day 2 did this. It was a garbage movie. The speech that the president gave in the first film, they did it again in the second one with different words, different meanings and everything else. It wasn't the same. You could tell that they were trying to relive their glorious pics and things of that nature. I don't even know what they did. I think they even have a different director. So that honestly has a huge part to play in it. I don't know who the director was for the older one. And though it was a bit campy, for the time that it was made, it was perfect, you know? And they sort of went in there and it had a type of charm about it that was like very endearing, very warmth and everything else. You can always appreciate the, you know, the whole graphical stylings, how things polished look. But it wasn't even all that impressive in this one. It still felt a little bit low budget. You know, and at least the old ones had a bit of that charm of the time that you could understand. But in this one, it was just like, whatever. So I'm watching this movie out of pure curiosity because I was like, look, you know what? I'm a huge fan of this movie when I was growing up. It is coming back in. And I was like, you know what? I want to sort of, you know, properly give my proper take about this sort of movie when I bring it up. Because in the last video, I mentioned how it's coming out and I would like to see it. And so I did see it and I wasn't really entirely impressed by it. I was impressed by how ridiculous the movie was in the fact that it was sort of like, really? That's what we're doing? You know, like they're giving a backstory to the main three witches, which, fine. Everyone needs that. And it sort of went a direction. But I think from the get-go, they were trying to make it comical. Ridiculously comical. And the old one wasn't really like that. And that is a problem that I have with a lot of these new movies. For some reason, people that are not comedians, Taika Waititi included, people that aren't funny are trying to be funny in these movies, and when they deliver these lines across within a story, they do so in a way that doesn't come across funny. It comes across as ridiculous. You know, it is not funny. During these times and things like that, there has to be a level of seriousness and severity to what you are doing. Putting in certain jokes or any little things in there can essentially ruin the overall immersion of the story. And it can sort of dampen the impact the story is trying to tell. For example, for those of you who haven't watched it, I don't know if you watched it now, but heads up, spoilers. If you've seen it, I won't say much, but I will say this, okay? Spoilers start in 3, 2, 1. Okay? The whole thing about the spoilers thing, well, at least what I'm trying to tell you is that in the beginning, they sort of go back to Salem witch trials. That's sort of where this whole sort of thing started and where it sort of goes around. In the first movie, the only context you have is that the three witches were luring kids into the house so that they can suck their souls out and gain younger life, a somewhat of a pseudo-immortal life. They wanted to be younger, they wanted to live forever, not be affected by the sun, because they were practicing dark arts of magic, which is what essentially was, you know, causing this big, huge issue thing. During that time, there's a huge puritanical influence, things of that nature. Witches were to be burned alive at the stake, or hanged, or stoned, or crushed by rocks, all of that stuff. So the witches, the Sanderson sisters, they were luring kids to their deaths. They get found out and stuff. The Puritans kill them. That's where the story ends for them. And it starts like over 2 centuries later in here. You guys know the story of the first one, okay? They die, they get brought back, okay? In this one, in the first movie, they also die because they, you know, the sun hit them. It was like boom, okay? In this new movie, they start off with the intro about them being in Salem as children. They wanted to go back that far, okay? Into a puritanical run village back then. And they weren't even witches. They were just doing weird things. They were doing things that were witch-like without them really being witches. They were trying to come up with things. They were just talking about how, you know, I'm going to do this thing to this person. I would like to do this thing, want to use these gross sort of ingredients, make something else. They created Jell-O, apparently. So that was nice, you know. Winifred Sanderson, I think that's what her name was. I can't remember. She had a horrible attitude as a child. She had ridiculously large overbite, which was like, really. She was like that. She was nasty even as a child, you know. So she was running through the village, pushing things around, getting her and her sisters, okay? She finds out that she has an arranged marriage with a person she does not really care for, and that I'm not even sure really likes women, to be honest. But I'm not one to make that judgment call based on the movie. They're playing characters. Remember what I said in the last one. She didn't like it. They don't like her attitude. They want her to comply. She says no. So then they're like, well, we're going to banish you instead. She's like, no, you can't do this. Try to take her sisters away from her. It creates this whole fiasco and things of that nature, okay? There's a spider that shows up, crawls on the priest, Whatever it is, he becomes somewhat significant. He freaks out, says the spider is evil, has magic, or something absolutely ridiculous, blowing it out of proportion. And it becomes this whole fiasco. They run away into the woods during the fiasco, and they find themselves across a witch that just turns from a bird into a witch. She's about to eat young Sarah Jessica Parker. She's about to take her soul out. Her eyes are glowing. All this crazy shit. They stop it from happening because she notices Winifred is very angry, that Winifred has power, and she sort of pulls back from that. And so she sees them as a sort of sisterhood. And so it sort of, hits her in a certain way. And then that's when she pulls out the book that they then have. She's like, you can use this book to grow in your powers, and then you pretty much do whatever you like. There's one spell you should not do. Read the warning. End of story. They take the book. They leave. They set some of the towns on fire with a spell. And that's pretty much where it sort of ends for them there. Then you find out later on from the first movie that they get killed because they end up leading kids to their deaths. They get hanged. They incite a spell. And then that's how it sort of whatever. As it turns into the new one, the new protagonist is a young girl. I forget her name. If she pops up in here, splendid. But that's pretty much what she is. So she's starting off in this new thing. She and her two friends, okay, 3 of them total, mind you, were very into doing this birthday ritual thing, which was like a magic spell and things of that nature. They would do it almost every year since they were children. As they get into high school, they drift a little bit, not too much. 2 of them still associate, like to do the ritual, things of that nature. One of them sort of a bit separated, but it's not like she doesn't care for them. They just don't really talk much anymore because of lots of things that happen. And so it's this whole thing. I really want to give the whole movie with synopsis away, but she's turning 16. There's this whole story and thing where when you become 16, a witch gets her powers. They do the ritual because a guy at the shop gives them a candle. It burns. Blah blah blah. They go to the forest where the original Sanderson sisters went. They met the witch. They go there, light the candle. It summons them back. I don't even know why that's the case. So any black flame candle you lit on a certain night, on a certain day, with everything in place, just gets them back. So they can essentially be brought back every time. So they never really stayed dead. Okay? And then they come back. And then it's the whole thing. Cat and mouse, they're chasing them. They think they're lying. There's some comical bits. And then fast forward throughout the movie, they're doing things, but they don't really want to suck children anymore. They just want to be powerful enough to not need to do it. They want to do this whole thing. They read the forbidden spell they weren't supposed to, and then if you guys have seen it, you guys know what it is, okay? The music number was ridiculous. One way or another, I don't give a shit, okay? Literally. It was just like what they were trying so hard to imitate it, and I get it, and the whole thing, the dance number, they did the whole Thriller thing. I'm just like, this feels forced. It feels stupid. I'm like, this is for a younger audience. Mind you, Hocus Pocus came out in the 90s, okay? The ratings for movies were different, but it felt a bit more grounded, more real. They weren't afraid to use, slightly suggestive things. It was a PG movie, but it was for an entire family, not just for a younger audience. And so it was something that was it encompassed the whole thing. It was a Halloween movie with some elements of fright, very, very lighthearted, and yes, it has its tropes, but it was a bit more charming. Like, it felt different when you watched it versus you do now. I don't know if it's anything to do with the fact that we were children when we watched it, but when you get older, that sort of charm is still there. And so you see this new movie come in, and it's sort of trying to imitate that same charm from the old one. Different actors. It was a different time. The world was different when that movie was made. Okay? And the new movie didn't really do it for me. It really didn't. I think on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it perhaps a 6 or perhaps a 7. It's all right. It's not terrible. It's not. It's just, it's all right, which is, the thing. And don't get me wrong, Hocus Pocus, when you watch it as an adult, it's also fine. But you understand that it's a movie made for a family, made for younger kids, but with some things thrown in there for the adults or things of that nature. They do it in the new one as well, but it didn't feel as like artificial in the old one. The new one felt very, face value. Like it was trying to force humor, be quick, be super witty all the time, be funny. I guess for kids to understand, I'm just like, it's not for me. I'm sorry. But what is interesting, and the spoilers, what is interesting is that, the concept of, things like magic or mana or anything else in that movie, they don't really go through all of it. They just have powers in their nature. It's rather fascinating when you have that sort of aspect, when you have things like, magic used from one person against the other one. It's very fascinating. But like I said, for those of you who haven't seen it, you're welcome that I gave you a spoiler warning to begin with. And I'm sorry that sort of took this long to sort of get through it, but it is a lot of things to talk about, But once you see it, you can go back. Honestly, I'm just reiterating what was already in it. There were things that it's just, not for me. But if you liked it, good for you. I have another friend who also liked it. I didn't hate the movie. I'm just like, I know what they were trying to do and it wasn't working for me. But I will say this. If the current generation, younger kids see the movie and they like it, but they've seen the old one, because that's important. This is the second one. They have to see the old one first. We'll see what they think about it then, since they have context, okay? We'll see what happens. Okay, so the second thing I'm going to talk about is The Rings of Power. Oh my God, it is so good. It is absolutely marvelous. It is very well done. The Tolkien series, the dialogue in the last episode, and as I'm recording this, I think they might be dropping the last one today. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen it yet, but oh my God, the absolute, artistry in the entire series, the aesthetics, the environments, the dialogues, the emotions, the action within it. It is almost like a Tolkien version of Game of Thrones, but not really. I don't really want to go there, but it sort of is. It's not as dark or as adult as there, but it is like, it's good. Like everyone and anyone can just pretty much watch this series and enjoy it. It hits a wide audience as terms of what they would find favorable in this sort of thing. So I think that is incredibly important. Very well done. The last one, oh my God, it gave me goosebumps. It gave me goosebumps. Oh my God, I was shaking in my boots. Well, in my sandals, whatever you're going to call it. But it was fascinating. It was just like, I absolutely love the dialogue between, and I'm sorry I forget this name. I don't know, it's Durin and his father. I want to say so. But the dialogue they have about this special thing, spoilers again. I'm sorry. Small one there, small one. That, like the whole thing about what they're having about the mithril, how it's in the earth and stuff, and how it could save the elves, and how his father's like, we're not going to do it. And Durin's like, we are going to do it, blah, blah, blah. You're full of shit. You're an old generation. And he's like, you guys don't get it, blah, blah, blah. He's like, we do get it, but you don't want to change and don't want to just stay as you want to stay the same. You want to keep our home being the way it is, even though the world is changing around us. We have friends and allies, people that we care about that are dying, and you care nothing for them because it sort of goes against whatever. You don't want to do, all this other sort of shit. And I was like, oh my God. And so, that line that Durin said, he was like, you profane the crown you wear. I was like, oh my God. I was like, woo! Woo! I was so excited. I was like, no way. It was so good because he was hitting him. He was hitting him where it hurts. Because it's like, Dad, because of you, because of what you're doing, you're going to make my friend die. I don't want to lose him. We're friends. He's almost like a family to me. And as far as like, I understand how you feel. He's like, you don't though. You don't understand how it feels like. Okay. You're you. You've always been you. His father's concerned about his people, which is fine. It's commendable. He has his responsibilities as a king. But when you're someone, the world is changing. It's so many things. But then later on, you see why the king didn't want to do all these sort of things. But it's like both of them. They both clearly love each other very much. But Durin is one that he's sort of seen the world outside a bit more in a certain aspect, from what I know. He made friends with this elf person before it was this big thing. His father didn't even seem like he was that against him either. But then he shows up. And then his father already knows why they were coming because of whatever. I'm like, well, why would you keep the sort of things a secret? But he tells his son, Durin, or whatever it is. I think it's his name. I hope I'm not getting it wrong. But if it is, forgive me. But it is so marvelous. And so everything, like how Mordor was created, was crazy by just putting in a key. The entire landscape was being worked underneath, which is sort of explain why they were digging so much. But it sort of becomes this whole. I was just like, this is insane to me. I was like, this is crazy. But they sort of answered questions that people had beforehand, and it was absolutely incredible. And I was like, this is marvelous. This series, I highly recommend it. I would give it a 10 out of 10. To be safe, 9 out of 10. Okay? But honestly, it's fantastic. Galadriel is young one. She's sort of, exploring the world. She wants to, take down the enemy. But she's so driven by revenge that it's getting mixed with justice. And so it's almost to a point where she could care less what happens to her team as long as justice is served. But then she's sort of losing her humanity in that aspect. She's just taking the role as guardian, but she's not considering the lives or the souls of the people she's working with. And so it becomes this huge thing. I was surprised that the queen, or I guess the queen regent of oh my God, that place where the humans reside that was given to them by the elves after the first huge encounter they had with Sauron and everything else. Beautiful place, beautiful city. She's the acting queen regent, and she's sort of there. She actually goes to the next land, and she's just like, you know what? I'll take your word for it. She actually makes a bond with the elf because she's like, look, our survival matters, and if evil has returned, I have to see it for myself. She goes, they see it. They have a huge war and everything else, and even when at the end of it, after Mordor arises and stuff and explodes, she goes blind, and that line when she says, how long before we get out of this fog? They were like, what do you see? Just, it's gray everywhere. When are we going to get out of it? And then they're like, Your Majesty, we have left the fog of the haze a mile ago. There's nothing like that for a mile here. And she's like, and then that realization in her face when she discovers that she has gone blind, it hurts her. But because she's the queen regent, someone that commands authority and respect, and her men who were right by her heard it and they were looking at her, but they were pressing on. She says, keep moving forward. Get my horse. Don't look back anything. Don't do anything. Do your job. Okay? Just go forward. The people don't have to worry about this right now. Go forward. Lead me to where we are supposed to go. I was like, damn. That like the kind of authority, it's like it's earned. Like, she's like, look, I don't care. What happens is my people's safety. I am deeply upset by this. I would hate this. And that's something that's very traumatic. To think about a person who has a beautiful country, a land, she sees the beauty and everything else, her people and everything. It's just to have that taken away. It sucks. It's absolutely terrible. But the type of authority she has, the power that she commands and shit like that. And she's willing to press forward just to lead her people to safety. It's absolutely remarkable. And then they lead her on, and so, he and, the father of, Isildur, he essentially, blames Galadriel for Isildur's disappearance or death or whatever it is. That part I kind of forgot. I think I was looking away for a moment or two. And then she ends up showing back. He doesn't like her. And the queen was like, Galadriel was like, I'm sorry what happened to you. I thank you so much for what you're doing. We will do what we can, blah, blah, blah. And the queen was like, you know what? We're going to press forward. I will not let the fact that I've been blinded, literally, by the enemy to stench off our conquest. I will send ships here. I will put soldiers on the ground. I will put swords in their bellies. I'm putting words in her mouth. That's essentially what she is saying. I will not rest till this evil scourge is swept from the earth. I hate them for what they did to me. I hate them for what they're doing to the people here. They deserve to be, exposed, punished, or whatever it is. I was like, her persistence. She has integrity. She did not give up, even when her eyesight was robbed of her, even when they suffered a huge blow of defeat, even when the enemy finally gained what they were looking for. She was like, I will not rest till evil is defeated. I was like, oh my God. She was astounding. She was marvelous. I loved her, and I still do. I was like, it's fantastic. Oh my God, it was a marvelous episode. It was beautiful. It was good. The dialogue was what got me. The story was awesome, but it carried the story along. It was fantastic. It was a lot more dramatic. Like, it pulled at your heartstrings a bit more, but I absolutely loved it for that reason. Absolutely wonderful job. End of spoiler, okay? But it was marvelous. I recommend, if you haven't seen Rings of Power, see that show. It's on Amazon Prime if you have it. I recommend it highly, highly recommend watching that show, okay? So for the third and final thing I want to talk about, for those of you who probably haven't noticed, in YouTube, we have a person called Dream has finally revealed his face. And let me say, he's quite handsome. Who would have thought, I mean, let me be honest, I was never a huge Dream fan and I really kept up with him, but I knew of Dream because I watch YouTube a lot. A lot of people I watch are gamers and things of that nature, other YouTubers that do this sort of thing, and they have Dream and concept. So I was surprised at first because I was watching Quiet. Hello, Quiet! I love him. He's absolutely funny, hilarious. I love him. And he was talking about how Dream did a face reveal. I was like, wait. Dream did a what? A face reveal? I have to see this. And so he showed it, I was like, that's him. So I go back to the actual video, he did a face reveal, and honestly, nice. Yes, Dream. Yes. People were making fun, like, he's not ugly. He's not. He has features that I admire, things that I like, things. He is beautiful, and he has charisma. He has a nice smile. He has a chiseled chin. I'll say that. He has a pretty big jaw, but his jaw's very defined. But that is an attractive feature to some, especially to me. He has nice eyes. I love his hair. And he sort of reminds me of a Greek figurehead. Sort of, I don't want to say Adonis, but he does look like someone. I can't really put my finger on it. But it's quite marvelous. I was like, he looks good. He doesn't even look bad. He was self-conscious about it. This whole time, I thought he was defending his identity because he didn't want to get noticed. Understandable. One of the biggest YouTubers on the platform to date. And I don't know why he waited such a long time for this sort of thing to happen. He's becoming an adult already. He looks fine. He looks normal. He doesn't really look bad. He's not over pretty or anything like. He's just a good-looking person to me. But he can seem quite common. He looks decent. He looks good. I think on a rating, disgusting as it is, I'd probably give him a 7. He's a 7. Maybe a nice 6. That's what I'd give him. He's not bad, okay? But people were, honestly, cancers, all of them. He's not a bad-looking boy. He's very good-looking. He has a nice voice, and he just does what he does. The issue is, though, is that when you sort of adopt a caricature where you're wearing a mask like I do, but for an exceptionally long amount of time without any sort of pulling them into it a bit, making it a bit more normalized, things of that nature, and you're not used to that, when you come in, you suddenly reveal your face to perhaps billions of people, and you get mixed reviews about it, maybe negative ones or anything else, you don't really know how to handle sort of thing because you never really had a sort of criticism. You wanted to sort of blend in or go into the background to not have anything that was sort of, identifying. But this whole thing, I was like, oh my God. I was like, people are disgusting, ridiculous. I was like, he looks fine. He's very pretty. He's a beautiful boy in that aspect. I see nothing wrong with him. Dream, you're not going to watch this, let's be honest. But if you did, I'd say you have nothing to be ashamed about, nothing to be nervous about. You are an adult. These are things that you will learn, and this is something that you will get over. You will get over this. People will see you in the street, fine, it's going to be this big thing, perhaps. And sure, there is a bit of a problem where you haven't, really done enough to sort of amend it, as it were. Will I do the same thing? Probably, but I'm pretty much close to, I'm pretty much most of the way there. You just have to take this off and that's it, but I'm sort of, walking you through it, So at one point, will I do a whole face reveal? If it's even necessary, I probably will. But for people who already know me already, they know what I look like. But if you don't and you're curious, leave a nice donation at the bottom. Yes, but it's a whole thing. But Dream, you have nothing to worry about. But like I said, people, this is important, These are normal people by a certain aspect. When they have accrued a large following, a certain amount of, fame in that aspect, and he has money, of course. The thing is that I don't know if he was personally, he was preparing himself for sort of situation, creating scenarios, plans, things of that nature. People now know what he looks like, okay? He has to go out in public, do all these sort of things. I think what helps is that if he just is out a lot more, people are used to seeing him. There's more videos now. It won't be as much, and they'll probably be a bit more behaved about it, because he pretty much created a whole hype around what he looks like by wearing the mask to begin with. But I think what he needs is time. But honestly, dream, truly a dream for everyone. For me, he's marvelous. He's beautiful. But like I said, these are things that people have to grow into, things that you have to, grow out of, but, it's all things, all good things, honestly. But without further more delay, I must end this video here. So I did plan on making this a bit shorter, but I did go on a bit of a tangent about the whole Hocus Pocus 2 thing. But honestly, I'm so happy to be just recording, so we have to tell all of you these things. If you are, in fact, interested in these sort of subjects, I highly recommend you look into them yourselves, okay? If you like what I'm doing, give it a thumbs up. If not, comment even. I'm not even averse to that. My comments are open. I could care less. What I want is that, you have a good time. That you are watching these things that I can help bring you some sort of joy, some sort of laughter if it's possible, or perhaps some sort of information that you may find useful or at least interesting. I am here, of course, and though I would love to, deliver all my mana into, just feed it into your bodies. If you get anything from this video, I am happy for it, and I'm happy for you. And I hope that, this video sort of made your day, perhaps your experience a bit brighter and a bit better. Let's be a bit honest about it. But thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for being here. I urge all of you to make sure that you're practicing in safety, whether it is sex or your magic, or perhaps riding a bicycle, or reading, or writing, or even painting, which I think I'm somewhat doing. If you are working on your craft, I urge all of you to make sure you do your proper research into whatever you're doing, whatever you're working with, who you're working with, because these things are sort of dangerous. I urge all of you to make sure you keep dancing, that you find something that gives you meaning, that you find something that gives you joy, and that you remember that if you're like a few individuals, that you remember to keep your brother who's in the cage out, let him out once in a while to give him some air. It gets rather stinky in there. And that you remember that on this channel, not only do we seek to make the mundane magical, but we seek to make a friend. And we seek to make them part of a family if you don't have one. Remember that I love you. That Pahalu, of course, cares for you as well. And that as long as I am here, I will be trying and I will keep delivering any sort of positive manner for you into your life, if that's even possible. I thank you so much for your consideration, so much for your viewership. And, if you perhaps want to do something a bit special, or you want to see something else perhaps, or something great, feel free to let me know about it in the comments. I'm not averse to reading them. Like I said, the negativity gives me power. It gives me energy that I then recycle and use for my daily use. And if you have some good ones that make me laugh, I'll probably mention them in the video. Let's be honest, I'm sort of like that. I can be a bit of a degenerate. I'm sorry. But thank you again, and goodbye.